What if I told you that in order to make great looking films, you don't need access to the fanciest gear or even the best lenses? I am working currently on my biggest project to date, but what you might be surprised to know is that I'm only using 2 lenses for the entirety of this project. If you haven't been keeping up with what's been going on this channel, I've been posting a behind the scenes video for every single day of the production of our first ever feature film. For the first day, we shot on the streets at 1 a.m. to capture these really cool dream walking sequences. For day 2, we mostly did interior shots that take place within the home that the main character of the film lives in. In these scenes, we see the main character interacting with a homemade technological device that helps him induce a dreamlike state. For day 3, we did a lot of the same and focused on the scenes that only require the main character. Our goal is to get all of those scenes done before doing scenes with other actors, just to build some momentum and I guess pick the low-hanging fruit. Let's just put it that way.
So my strategy is going to be to string them all out and then put them in one by one.
I think this was like this?
Yeah. Something funky like that?
Yeah. Which input was...
It does, I don't know. Let's see.
It does matter.
It does not.
Yes, it does.
It does not. It's a different day. Different frequency.
It's all the same frequency. He doesn't change frequencies till he goes to the new thing.
You know, they don't make buttons like they used to.
They don't. It's because our contacts are different now.
If I move this dial, will you have bad dreams?
Probably.
Yeah.
Might dream of a monster or something. Who knows? This looks about right for right here. And everything else kind of... We have like some HDMI cords that like... you see like wrap around, and then the coil just like rests against it, and then this goes like back behind there.
The brain wire.
And then the last one we're doing is he begins working on an upgraded dream diving setup again, which is him actually fiddling with the thing itself, and everything is day stuff that we'll do tomorrow. But for now, we're doing work outfit 1, just so it kind of feels like it's rooted all in one direction.
Yeah, yeah. Before it was a little more.
Yeah.
I just need 2 shots, I think. I like the shapes and the shadows.
All right, I'm ready to go when you are. So just...
We need this to dissipate just like a 1% more.
Okay.
It's pretty close though. You'll start in the bedroom and you'll come from around the corner, I think.
Rolling and action. Okay. My main lens is a Nikon 20 to 35mm f2.8. This is a kind of older lens. I want to say it came out in the late 90s. And some of the characteristics that this lens gives definitely lend themselves to that vintage aesthetic. The second lens I'm using is the Nikon 50mm f1.4 AIS, and this has been my go-to lens for medium shots and close-up shots. I'm really enjoying this workflow of only using 2 lenses for this entire project because it helps me not have to think too hard about what lenses I'm using and what focal length I choose for what purpose. I still have to make some decisions regarding whether to use a close-up shot over a wide shot, and I still have to think about how to sequence the film, but I really didn't want to overthink the lens I was using for any given shot. It's literally as simple as use the 20 to 35mm for most of the shots, so basically any establishing shots or wider shots, and then switch to the 50mm if I want to get close up on a specific detail or if I just want to restrict the field of view a little bit more. One thing I've discovered while working with these lenses is that I'm actually a huge fan of just a traditional 50mm focal length and actually a slightly non-traditional 20mm focal length.
Okay, so it won't actually be this bright. We'll probably lower it in post to something like that.
Light on makes him like, oh.
We did that already, kind of.
Yeah, no, do it. Do it for like,
okay.
Like a throwback.
You got it, for sure. Oh shit! Right here? Is this good, Mateo?
This is fine.
All right. I'll
How's it look?
let's roll through it.
Freaking lily white.
Okay, actually, we might have found something.
Oh my gosh, almost as if stylization matters.
Like I said before, I'm trying to be as minimal as possible with this film project. I don't want to use too much gear, and I don't want to have too much gear really holding me down. My main light, which is very often the only light I'm using to light my scenes, is the Aperture Amaran 60D. I'm really enjoying using this light. It's very cute, it's very small, but the 60-watt power output ends up being fairly bright for a lot of things. I will say, however, that one of the main limitations that I've run into in using this light is that the moment you start to modify it, whether it's using a softbox or using an optical snoot, which I've talked about in the last behind the scenes video. I've been talking about this optical snoot accessory a lot. You're probably going to get annoyed from me talking about it more, but this is another accessory that I'm using in conjunction with this light. And I find that it absorbs a lot of the output of the 60-watt light. And one of the main benefits of getting a higher output light, whether it's 100 watts, 200 watts, 600 watts, is that it allows you to use accessories and still get a pretty good output. It's not ideal, and it is one of the biggest limitations I've been running into, but we've been making it work.
If I keep this here long enough, tomorrow you're just only going to see
Like a dot.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of...
So try to hit the center of the bed. So see the pillow, the center of the pillows.
Yeah, I needed to hit like that. I just didn't.
All right, let me know when you're ready.
Alrighty, let's try.
Rolling and action. Cut.
Did my feet get in the shot?
No, your feet were great. Everything was great. Let's do it one more time for safety. I'm actually pretty happy with that.
This is kind of a shot I'm willing to work to make perfect.
One thing is like your sleeves were not rolled up in the previous shot.
No, they were.
Okay.
They've been rolled up this entire time.
Good.
One of the cooler shots that we got on day 3 of this production was actually another bedroom shot. If you were here for us for my last upload, which was for day 2 of this feature film project, we did do some filming in the bedroom, and we had some really cool lighting for it as we were trying to replicate this early morning kind of feel. But for day 3, I wanted to differentiate these bedroom scenes a little bit. On one hand, it wasn't too hard because these bedroom scenes take place at night, whereas the first few took place during the daytime. So on one level, it was differentiated in that way, but I wanted to do something a little bit more unique. What I ended up doing is using this sort of stage lighting effect, and I achieved that with, say it with me now, an optical snoot, which is what I use for most of my lighting effects. I just find that it's a really versatile tool. For this, I took the gobo completely out. I shot the light straight through the optical snoot to create this circular effect. And for me, this lighting effect resembles kind of like stage lighting. You know, it feels like there's a spotlight on the main character. And I felt like the spotlight really highlighted the way the character was feeling at that exact moment. On one hand, it's bright, it's airy, and he is in a relatively good mood because he has a relationship within the film that's actually going somewhere. However, at the same time, similarly to how we often feel when we feel known by other people, which is a good feeling, it also makes us feel exposed. It makes us feel vulnerable. You know, it makes us feel like we can't hide, you know, our imperfections. They are on display for at least the people who know you deeply to see. While it was hyper stylized, and it's certainly not a motivated light source, because there would not be a light source practically in a bedroom like this that looks like that. However, I felt like it really, well, for one, looked really cool, but for two, it conveyed the ideas that I was going for, and I felt like it was appropriate for this particular scene.
And cut. Ended up being 30 seconds. Wow. How do we do that?
One of the biggest filmmaking lessons I've learned in, well, really this year is how to leverage abstraction to help engage people in your stories. The deal with abstraction is it relies on this principle that you shouldn't reveal too much. If you reveal too much, the shot will become boring. And so I'm applying that to basically every project that I do these days. I've been developing this filmmaking framework for, you know, the past couple months now that really builds on this concept that maybe you shouldn't reveal too much, and maybe if you do reveal too much, it'll make your work less engaging. And this framework is as follows. I'm calling it the two-stage cinematic formula. The basic principle here is that every shot in a film needs to serve as either a setup for the following shot, a payoff for the previous shot, or both. If you can build this cycle of setups and payoffs into every shot of your film, it will make your film more interesting. So what does this look like in practice? Well, for the study shots that we did towards the end of our shoot day, I used a simple rack focus. For all of these shots, I used my 50mm f1.4 lens, and let me just say that the 50mm focal length, especially on a full frame camera, is so perfect. And I also like this Nikon 50mm lens as well. I find that it's extremely sharp, but it has just some characteristics to it that I really enjoy. I can't tell you exactly what those characteristics are. I can just say I really like the results that I'm getting from it. For this particular study shot, I started with our subject being out of focus. What having your subject be out of focus accomplishes is it forces your audience to engage with the scene because it's not obvious right away what they're looking at. They can kind of tell that there's a person sitting there, and they can probably even guess who the person is if they've been watching the film up to this point. But in having a out of focus shot, or at least a partially out of focus one, it begs the question of, what am I missing in this shot? Is there more to this scene than I'm seeing right now? And it creates a tension that's ultimately not satisfied until the subject of the shot is in focus. This is sort of what I mean when I talk about your shots need to have either a setup, a payoff, or both. This shot serves as both a setup and a payoff. The setup, which can also be thought of as a question, is what is it that I'm looking at? And the payoff is, oh, I'm looking at this character sitting at his desk. This setup and payoff can play out within the same shot, but sometimes the setup and payoff is something that goes from shot to shot to shot. This whole sequence is literally just the main character sketching out a new design for this new device that he's building that's important to the story. And that scene could be relatively boring because it's just a guy sketching in a notebook, but the way that we establish this cycle of setups and payoffs by not revealing the entire subject and purpose of the scene right away, we are forcing our audiences to engage with the shot more. So that's just one example of how I'm approaching this film specifically from the perspective of the lenses I'm using and the way I'm choosing to focus with them. As far as how I approached the lighting in this shot, all I had to do was use an aperture MC to motivate the screen that the main character is looking at. And then we also have another practical in the scene, which is the lamp. Hopefully this inspires you to go out and make films because you really don't need fancy lighting gear to get great looking shots. If you know how to work around practicals, it'll take you a really long way. That basically concludes everything from day 3 of our behind the scenes coverage of us shooting our very first feature film. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something. And I also hope that you subscribe because in next week's video, we did some really cool things for day 4 of shooting our first feature film. I've been Zach. Thank you so much for watching. And here's a little sneak peek of what you can expect from next week's video.
Rolling and action.